Now, the North Vietnamese come, and they bring it. Here we go. The first rush by at least 300 North Vietnamese was beaten off in less than 10 minutes by small arms, machine gun, and artillery fire from the alert and well-prepared Bravo Company 2nd Battalion troops. At 4:31 a.m., 20 minutes later, they came back. De Dierik said, the intensity of their attack increased, and I was under assault aimed at my 3 left platoon sectors. Screams, shouts, and whistles split the night as NVA swept down the mountain straight into the smoke-clouded killing ground. Now all the mortars of my battalion and Tully's were turned loose, adding their 81mm high explosive shells to the general mayhem. Rifleman John Martin, who is in De Dierik's lines, says, we kept pouring rifle and machine gun fire and artillery on them, and they broke and ran. I don't think we had any casualties, but they were catching hell. So now it's a totally different story. Mm-hmm. These guys are dug in. They have all their artillery dialed in. They've got their fields of fire set up, and the attacks come. Well-organized attacks with 300 people. They don't make it happen. Mm-hmm. The Vietnamese don't make it happen.
Yeah.
Back to the book. Over on the perimeter, Escorla's men fought on. Our M79 switched to direct fire. Fire delivered to a visible target and lobbed rounds out between 75 and 100 yards. Still, the shadowy clumps moved closer. RPGs and machine guns crackled as they blasted us from the dark line of ground cover. Across open fields, they came in a ragged line. The first groups cut down after a few yards. A few surged right on, sliding down behind their dead comrades for cover. An amazing, highly disciplined enemy. A trooper cursed and pleaded in a high-pitched voice, God damn it, stop the bastards. So here they are. They're attacking, and when the North Vietnamese soldiers get hit, their buddies are coming up behind them, taking cover behind their bodies and continuing to assault. So this is an indicator. Like I said, this was early in the war. This is 1965, and we didn't know this determined enemy yet. We didn't understand that yet. Mm. And here we're seeing it for the first time. This is how determined these guys are. Mm. They are going to attack. They're going to attack through whatever we put at them. Here's another situation. Stedelen whispered orders to his squad, telling men on either side of him to hold their fire, not to shoot until the enemy stepped out into that open space right in front. Suddenly a flare and a booby trap went off, and they were there in the grass shooting at us. I took a round just above the elbow. Nothing really, just a stitch or two and a piece of tape after the fight. Nobody shot back. Then they stepped into that open area. The flares were burning, they were lit up, and it was easy. We opened up and picked them off. It was a light attack. Then they hit us harder 30 minutes later, blowing bugles, blowing whistles. We killed them all. Then some white phosphorus came in about 15 in front of my hole, and I lost most of my web gear and my shirt. Had about 8 burns on one arm. John Stetlen sat there under the light of the flares and used the point of his bayonet to quickly dig the still burning Willie Pete fragments out of his flesh. So white phosphorus is a type of munition that we use, and it's white phosphorus, and it hits and blows up, and it's on fire. It's little pieces of burning hot metal. And he's picking it out of his arm. During the 2.5 hours of the attack against the Dierik sector, the rest of the X-ray perimeter had been quiet. Too quiet. Dylan and I discussed the possibility of conducting a reconnaissance by fire to check for presence of the enemy elsewhere on the line. We had plenty of ammunition, and what the hell, the enemy knew where our lines were by now, as well as I did. We passed the word on the battalion net. At precisely 6:55 a.m., every man on the perimeter would fire his individual weapon, and all machine guns for a full 2 minutes on full automatic. The word was to shoot up trees, anthills, bushes, and high grass forward of and above the American positions. Gunners would shoot anything that worried them. By now, we had learned to our sorrow that the enemy used the night to put snipers in trees, ready to do damage at first light. Now was the time to clean up out front. At the stated time, our perimeter erupted in an ear-splitting uproar, and immediately a force of 30 to 50 North Vietnamese rose from a cover 150 yards forward of Joe Sugdini's Alpha Company. 2nd Battalion lines and began shooting back. The mad minute of firing triggered their attack prematurely. Artillery fire was instantly brought in on them and the attack was beaten off. When the shooting stopped, one dead sniper dangled by his rope from a tree in Fort of Dederick's leftmost position. Another dropped dead out of a tree almost immediately forward of John Herron's Bravo Company, 1st Battalion command post. A 3rd North Vietnamese sniper was killed an hour later when he tried to climb down from his tree and run for it. Sergeant Stedlin's arm, speckled with white phosphorus burns, began hurting him now. I was sent back to the aid station where my arm was bandaged and I was waiting to be medevaced out. The more I sat there, the more I realized I couldn't in good faith get on a chopper and fly out there and leave those guys behind. So I took the sling off my arm and went back out. Somebody asked, "Where are you going?" I said, "Back to my foxhole." Nobody said anything else. So obviously these guys now have gained some good fire superiority, the upper hand in the battle.